When I had my uterus removed to save my life, David cried, saying he didn't care about children. Then his secretary showed up at my door with an 8-month pregnant belly. The DNA test showed the baby was his. That hypocrite had gotten someone else pregnant long before my surgery. When I asked for a divorce, he went crazy and held me captive, a canary in a madman's cage. Watch me play nice to trick him into signing the divorce agreement. I had a fibroid surgery which resulted in the removal of my uterus. I could no longer have children. David comforted me, saying he didn't like kids anyway. But on New Year's Day, his secretary blocked my way, flaunting her pregnant belly. Do you know how obsessed Uncle David was when he was leaning on my belly, listening to the baby move? I threw my wedding ring in David's face. He knelt, begging me not to leave. I've only ever loved you, Sarah. I just wanted a child. But he didn't know that the day my uterus was taken, my heart had already died. As I was preparing to go out today, David's secretary, Ashley, stood blocking the front door with her pregnant belly. She confidently lifted her stomach, showing it off to me. Do you know how obsessed Uncle David was when he was leaning on my belly, listening to the baby move? Her belly looked at least 6 months along, calculating the time. It was right around when I had my uterus removed. I smiled wryly, took out a card, and handed it to her. There's 5 million here. You and your child won't have to worry about the rest of your lives. I had dealt with women like her many times before. I didn't believe for a second that she was pregnant with David's child. Everyone knew David loved me fiercely. He brought me to every event he attended and was known for being impeccably clean. We were practically stuck together 24 hours a day. It was impossible for him to cheat. But every time a woman showed up, I would give them a sum of money, because I knew most of them had been hurt by men. The father wouldn't acknowledge paternity, so they wanted to find a father to acknowledge paternity. The day I had my uterus removed, David was with me. The news was public. Everyone in Capital City knew Mrs. Chen was unable to have children. That's why there was a never-ending stream of illegitimate children appearing. When David found out, he pouted and whined at me. Wife, my loyalty is clear to heaven and earth. You have to stand up for me. We had a tacit understanding. But this Ashley was different. She didn't just take the money and leave like the others. Instead, she threw the card on the ground and refused me righteously. Sarah, you think you're something because you have a little money. I will absolutely not let my child be without a father. Having attended many events with David over the years, I had a certain sensitivity to the cameras. Not far away, a camera was pointed directly at us. This woman was intelligent, but unfortunately, she was using her cleverness in the wrong way. I had my bodyguards retrieve the camera, smashed it to pieces, and looked at the trembling Ashley. Now you can speak properly. I'll give you one last chance. Her small face turned pale with fright, and her initial arrogance vanished. After all, my public image was gentle and patient. She probably thought I was a paper tiger. Ashley swallowed, her words a little stuttered. I just want Mr. Chen to go for a prenatal checkup with me. He hasn't been to Hillside Estate to see me in a month, so I could only come here. Her expression didn't seem fake. Had something really happened between her and David? I looked at her belly, lost in thought. 6 months was long enough to do DNA testing, verifying it wouldn't take long. I took David's used toothbrush and took Ashley to the hospital. I paced back and forth outside the hospital's maternity ward, waiting for the results for an hour. I actually felt a little nervous. Finally, the doctor came out with a report. I saw the bold letters on it. Paternity exists. I clutched the report, feeling somewhat disbelief, because besides that, it also showed that Ashley was already 8 months pregnant. She was just thin, making her pregnant belly look smaller. 8 months, at that time. I hadn't had my uterus removal surgery yet. How much had David hidden from me? After Ashley left, David called me. I looked at the bodyguard beside me, who lowered his head guiltily. Mr. Chen said he needed to be informed of your whereabouts every day. Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry. I tossed my phone to him. Then report to him now. Tell him I'm going to City Hall, and tell him to meet me there. After leaving the hospital, I went to our old apartment where we lived when we were dating. The walls were covered with photos of David and me. He took me traveling all over the world, attending various banquets with drinking, toasting, scene after scene, event after event, all vividly present. Could a man who loved me so much also have a child with someone else? I curled up by the floor-to-ceiling window, hugging my knees, and looked at the scattered stars outside. That night, it was a dark night just like this one, with only a few scattered stars and no moon. I was diagnosed with uterine fibroids, and David paced anxiously in the living room. I will definitely contact the best doctor for you. so you won't have any complications. In just 1 hour, he contacted the most authoritative gynecological expert and sent me to the hospital overnight. He kept comforting me, telling me not to worry, it's not a big illness. I've looked into it. Don't be scared. I used a tissue to wipe the sweat from his forehead and held his trembling hand. Okay. I'm not worried. The surgery was smooth, but when he came out, David's expression was unnatural. My heart sank, but I still pretended nothing was wrong and asked him, "What's wrong? Did they find some other terminal illness?" He held my hand, lowered his head and kissed it. Looking uneasy, "Sarah, I told the doctor to remove your uterus as well." I tried to pull my hand back, but I felt weak. Tears streamed from my eyes. No matter how hard I wiped, they wouldn't stop. "Why? You knew how much I wanted a child." I picked up the water glass from the table and threw it at David's forehead. He didn't move. Blood flowed down his forehead, leaving a long streak of blood on his white shirt. He looked at me, his eyes firm. "I couldn't bear to let you suffer the pain of childbirth. My mother died from difficult labor." The bodyguard scrambled to call a doctor for him. I pressed the call button. "Don't call anyone. Let him hurt." Everyone in the room exchanged glances, but no one moved. I turned my back to David, tears soaking the pillow. He sent everyone out, took off his shoes and got onto the bed, pulling me into his arms. "Wife, I love you." I heard the sound of the door opening. Without turning around, I knew it was David. He took off his coat and covered my shoulders, holding me in his arms as usual. "Wife, why are you standing by the window letting the wind blow? You just recovered from a cold." I pulled him down to sit and leaned against him naturally. I closed my eyes, listening almost obsessively to the rhythm of his heart. All my emotions were saved in that moment. "If only you hadn't lied to me." His body stiffened. A flicker of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. "Don't worry. She won't bother you anymore." David was a man of his word. If I had tacitly agreed, Ashley would have disappeared from Capital City after tonight. But I didn't want to prove our marriage was unbreakable this way. After all, it had already been riddled with holes without my knowing. I opened my eyes, my rationality restored. "David, this is pointless. I'm tired." I pushed his hand away and walked to the photo wall, taking down a photo. It was taken when we were just dating, when he took me to the snowy mountains. The vast white snow behind him made David's smile even more radiant. He really loved me, but he had never truly respected me. I took the photo out and smashed the frame. I also tore the photo to shreds. David panicked. He knelt on the ground, picking up the pieces. His hand touched glass shards, and blood appeared, but he seemed unaware, stubbornly putting the pieces on the table, trying to piece them together. "If I put it back together, will you not be angry anymore?" He looked at me with a pleading gaze. I had seen the same look in someone else's eyes. For a moment, I was lost in thought. "Sarah, don't leave me." David's voice pulled me back to reality. Some things, once they happen, can never go back to how they were. I reached up and touched the scar on his forehead. Half a year later, it was very faint, but it was still a thorn stuck in my heart. Others couldn't pull it out, and I couldn't spit it out. "David, let's get a divorce." He stopped trying to piece the paper together. With a gentle blow, the fragments he had painstakingly collected scattered again. His blood-stained hands reached out to me, then pulled back, wiping the blood on himself. "Sarah, don't joke with me. It's not funny at all." His self-deception was laughable to me. He was the one who betrayed our marriage, yet he made it seem like I was the heartless executioner. The sudden ring of a phone broke the silence. It was David's. Mine was lost long ago. He ignored it, but I took it out and saw the caller ID. That woman. David never saved anyone's number like that. What kind of woman could have such a special contact name? I motioned for him to answer. He swiped to answer and put it on speakerphone. "Uncle David, my stomach hurts so much. I don't know if the baby is coming. Can you come see me?" Ashley's sweet and charming voice was especially loud in our old apartment. David looked at me, flustered. I spoke into the phone. "Your Uncle David will be right there. Just hang on." Ashley on the other end fell silent immediately upon hearing my voice and hung up. I picked up my keys, changed my shoes, and looked at the stunned David, calling out, "Let's go. You're already full of sin. Do you want your child to die in the womb?" Whether the baby was really in trouble or it was just Ashley's trick to gain favor, now that I knew, I wouldn't ignore an innocent life. I could never have children in this life. I wouldn't let another innocent life be lost. All the way there, David was uneasy about my calm demeanor. He thought I would make a scene, and then he would, and things would be fine. But I didn't want to make a scene. I was already completely disappointed in him. He slept with another woman behind my back, and then had my uterus removed. Was that really because he cared about me? This man, whose eyes were supposedly only for me, wasn't very honest. As the car entered Hillside Estate, David became restless, drinking half a bottle of water. Ashley was lying on the sofa in the living room, her face covered in sweat. It seemed she wasn't lying. She might be in premature labor. When she saw David, she waved eagerly, but her gaze shifted to me beside him, and she stopped. Mr. Chen, my stomach hurts so much. Am I going to die? It was no secret that David's mother died in childbirth. His face changed instantly when he heard that. He picked her up and put her in the car. Ashley said that intentionally to make David feel sorry for her. I had to admit, she was a very intelligent woman. She spoke subtly, yet managed to secure tangible benefits for herself. It seemed I didn't need to worry about her being taken advantage of. As the car door was closing, David seemed to remember I was still behind him. He turned around and searched for a moment. Finding me standing motionless at the doorway, he ran back and grabbed my hand. Wife, it's a special situation today. You go back first. I'll be home later. I smoothed his messy hair and smiled properly. I know. Go on and be busy. I did indeed need to go home. Just now, I had scheduled a lawyer to come to the house to discuss the divorce. I watched David's car drive away from me, getting farther and farther until it was out of sight. This twisted marriage ended today, actually. Calling it a divorce agreement was just a formality of signing papers. After all, we had lived separate lives for years, and there were no property disputes. I looked at the neatly arranged clothes in the closet and the rows of sparkling gold and silver jewelry in the jewelry box. Lost in thought, David had been very good to me, granting my every wish, and materially, there was nothing to complain about. But I forgot that even the best man couldn't withstand the trials of the secular world. If not Ashley, there would be Linda, or Susan. When the clock struck 2, David returned. He searched frantically in the bedroom, turning the bathroom upside down, making a huge racket. Did he actually think I would do something foolish? When he pushed open the walk-in closet door and saw me, he hugged me tightly. Wife, why aren't you asleep yet? I casually picked up a necklace. It glittered under the light. Can I take this? He paused, put the item back in the box, and pulled me out. Let's just sleep first, okay? I'm really tired. He understood what I was saying. He just wanted to avoid it, but it didn't matter. My suitcase was already packed. I would leave at dawn. We were sleeping in the same bed but miles apart. David didn't sleep, and neither did I. I quietly listened to the steady beat of his heart against my chest, silently wiping away tears. This was the last time. He kept rubbing my arm without saying anything. He always became especially restless when he was nervous, needing to find something to distract himself. He didn't notice that my arm was red from his rubbing. This quiet war was started by me at dawn. I took off the wedding ring I had worn for 5 years and threw it at him without hesitation. I've already entrusted the lawyer to handle the paperwork. We'll never see each other again. He blocked my path, clutching my suitcase tightly. Ashley is just a tool for having children to me. I won't see her again in the future. He knelt on the cold floor, begging me bitterly. Sarah, I've only ever loved you. He spoke so movingly, but my heart was completely unmoved. I knelt down, looked into his eyes, and said, word by word, I never loved you. His eyes turned red, and a hot tear fell onto the back of my hand. I comforted him one last time. David, you were very lucky to survive that accident and get a healthy heart. I wish you smooth sailing from now on. He widened his eyes, as if realizing something. All the color drained from his face. He fell to the ground, the light in his eyes dimming. Every time you leaned against me, you were thinking of him, weren't you? I didn't answer. Many things didn't need to be spelled out, but he didn't let go of me because of that. He grabbed my shoulders excitedly, making me look at him. Sarah, you treated me as a substitute, didn't you? Yes, I thought that once he got the answer, he would let me go, and we would go our separate ways. But he became even more frantic. He grabbed my chin, pressed his thin lips against my face, and forcefully entered my mouth. I struggled and hit him with all my might, but he was unresponsive. In desperation, I bit his tongue. A sweet, bloody taste filled my mouth, making me very uncomfortable. He seemed to have no pain, not even a frown. Only when I collapsed in his arms did he stop and stroke my face. It's okay. It's enough that I love you. David confined me to the bedroom, not allowing anyone to speak to me. He was like a changed person, irritable and prone to smashing things. Everyone in the villa was terrified, But every time he came into the bedroom, he was very patient with me. If I knocked over the food, he would sweep it up and order new food. If I slapped him, he would slap himself twice. At night, he would cling to me like an octopus again, telling me bedtime stories. Ashley gave birth. The baby has big eyes, very much like yours. Sarah, when you're in a better mood, I'll have someone bring him over. I turned my head in disbelief, wondering how he could do something like that. He pinched my face, his tone doting, too happy to speak. We have our own child now, Sarah. Looking into his eyes, I felt fear for the first time. I had heard the maids discussing how Ashley had come to cause trouble a couple of days ago but had now disappeared. David was too crazy. Completely different from the man I used to know. I had to find a way to turn the tables. Tomorrow was our 5th wedding anniversary. In previous years, David would make a big fuss to let everyone know how much he cherished me. But this year, he hadn't made any arrangements until now. This was the only opening I could find, and I had to seize this opportunity. That night, I started to test him. David, do you have any plans for tomorrow? He paused in untying his tie, walked over, and kissed me. Sarah, I knew you wouldn't forget, seeing the smile in his eyes. I deepened the kiss, actively untying his tie and buttons, kissing him until the world spun. He tore at my pajamas wildly and didn't stop until after midnight. I leaned against him, listening to the steady beat of his heart, and shed silent tears. One of us was bound to get hurt in this twisted marriage. The next day, David came back early, his face beaming. I gave him the gift I had prepared. He didn't even look at it. Just hug and kiss me endlessly. You're the best gift. He should have looked though. Inside was the divorce agreement, but by the time he came to his senses, I would probably already be on a flight to France. David was afraid I would escape during a grand celebration, so he kept everything simple, even giving the maids the day off. This only made it easier for me. At the candlelight dinner, I deliberately chose high-proof alcohol and filled the glass to the brim. David was a lightweight. Get drunk after one glass, but no one dared to urge him to drink when he was out, so no one knew how bad his alcohol tolerance was. He thought I didn't know either and even told me to drink less. I pretended to be drunk and rested my head on the table for 10 minutes. But David didn't react. The sleeping pills must have taken effect. I hadn't been sleeping well lately, so David had someone prescribe me sleeping pills. Afraid he might wake up midway, I put 3 pills in his wine glass. I guided his hand to sign the divorce agreement, took off my wedding ring, and left it on the table with a letter. I told him not to look for me, that I wouldn't see him as the plane flew over capital city. I had a sense of unreality. Too much had happened in the past month. Like a stone, it had stirred up the calm of 5 years into turbulent waves. The plane landed exactly at noon local time. I ate at a nearby Chinese restaurant. Curses came from the kitchen. I'm doing you a favor by telling you to wash dishes. Don't be ungrateful. He was speaking Chinese, and the person being scolded was Chinese. I rushed over and saw a disheveled Ashley. She had just finished postpartum confinement not long ago. How could she be working as a dishwasher here? When she saw me, she looked like she'd seen a ghost, begging for mercy. Mrs. Chen, I won't bother you anymore. Please give me a way to live. Just as I was about to pull her out, she shrank away. I saw faint marks under her sleeve. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her sleeve up. Her arm was crisscrossed with red whip marks. Did David do this? Seeing her resistant look, I laid my cards on the table. We're divorced, as of today. When she heard that, she abruptly looked up, her eyes wide with anger. Then what about my child? Are you going to make him a child without a mother? I was stunned looking at her like this. Some people shouldn't be pitied. I didn't say anything else, ate my meal, and left, but unexpectedly, she followed me all the way. When I got out of the car at the hotel entrance, she ran over and knelt in front of me. Miss Sarah, I know you're a good person. I was too emotional just now. Mr. Chen took my child and had me deported. He arranged for me to wash dishes in a dirty, messy kitchen, while you're dressed in jewels. I was resentful. That's why I lost my temper with you. She lifted her hand, which was pale from being soaked in water, and couldn't help but cry again. I don't know how many bowls I've washed, how many times I've been hit. I don't want to go back there. Please take me with you. I had enough money to support her. But this woman wasn't simple. I didn't know how much of what she said was true. I had exchanged currency for France when I landed at the airport. It was enough to last me 6 months. I took it out and gave it to her. This little bit is just a token of my goodwill. I can't help you with more. She took it, bowing and thanking me repeatedly. Thank you. Thank you. "You're truly a good person." But just as I turned to leave, I felt a syringe at my neck. As I fell, I saw her vicious gaze. It was a look of certainty, like looking at prey. "Sarah, why did you get his special treatment?" When I woke up, I was in a damp basement. There was no sunlight, and the air smelled of mildew. Ashley had shed her pathetic facade. She held a knife to my throat and opened my phone. "I want to see if David will come to save you." She was bound to be disappointed. I had deleted all of David's contact information. I didn't know what she wanted to do, so I could only wait and see. "If you want money, I can give it to you. There's no need to go through all this trouble." But she seemed not to hear me. Lost in her own world, sometimes happy, sometimes angry. "David didn't even save your number? You're not so great after all. Just glamorous on the surface." She seemed to have found something shocking and smashed the phone. "What is it about you that makes him so devoted?" I looked down at the ground, catching a glimpse of a photo in my peripheral vision. David was holding me from behind, resting his head on my shoulder, smiling brightly. I guess what she cared about was the pair of wedding rings intertwined in the photo. That was something she had desperately longed for. Before I could speak, her knife traced my face, moving downwards bit by bit. The coldness of the blade tip sent shivers through my body, and I broke out in a cold sweat. She was capable of anything now. "Call David and tell him to bring the child to see me." She handed me the phone with a snake-like smile. After I got the phone, I pretended to browse through it, but my thumb pressed the power button for 3 seconds to dial the emergency number. Before I could dial out, the phone was knocked out of my hand. Smack. Ashley slapped me. The sound echoed loudly in the empty basement. My face was numb with pain, and blood seeped from the corner of my mouth. "Do you think I'm blind? I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. Don't blame me now." She squeezed my chin with one hand. The more I resisted, the harder she hit me. My face was already unrecognizable. I wanted to speak, but I couldn't. Her knife traced from my forehead down to my chin. Everywhere it went felt like a line of ants biting, both painful and numb. Blood stuck to my face, dripping down onto my neck, staining my collar red. I was in too much pain to speak, but she forced me to lift my head and smile at the phone. "David, will you still like her now that she's this ugly?" I closed my eyes in silent defiance, not wanting David to recognize me. I wasn't afraid of David coming to catch her. I was afraid of him coming to catch me. I had gone through so much trouble to get here. I didn't want everything to go back to square one. Tears and blood mixed together, making my face sticky. Even without a mirror, I knew I looked like a mess. Ashley was extremely satisfied seeing me in such a pathetic state. "Sarah, weren't you so arrogant before? Even dragging David to my villa to act like the rightful wife. Look at you now that you've left him, a complete wreck." I had never held any hostility towards her. I even took David to see her. In her eyes, all of that turned into showing off. Ashley's phone rang. She looked surprised and happy. I could probably guess who it was. It was David. The threatening video Ashley sent had worked. David called, and she put it on speakerphone. I heard David's grim voice. "Put the phone next to Sarah. I want to hear her speak, or I'll strangle your child." Those two were a perfect match, equally cold-blooded. Ashley's voice changed from surprise to sobbing, but she still did as he said. Her attitude surprised me a little. Why was she so concerned about this child who had seemingly no connection to her? I didn't speak. She viciously pinched my wound, and blood welled up again. I cried out in pain. Sarah?" David's startled voice sounded at the same time. I heard his hurried footsteps. "Ashley, don't do anything rash. We can talk about anything." I don't know what they talked about. My eyelids grew heavy, and I fainted. When a bucket of cold water woke me up, my reactions were very slow. There was a violent banging at the door. David broke in, walking towards me against the light. I tried hard to open my eyes, but they were stuck shut with blood, and I couldn't see his expression clearly. I could only hear his voice gently comforting me, and Ashley's continuous screams. "David, can't you see who is sincere towards you? I had a child for you. I was your mistress in secret, and this is how you treat me." David carefully wiped my face clean. I could feel his hands trembling. "I'm sorry, Sarah, I came late." He walked over to Ashley, placed one foot on her hand, his eyes sharp as a knife. "Who do you think you are? Having my child? You're not even fit to carry my shoes." Ashley looked terrified, as if she had realized something. "You lied to me." "David, how could you lie to me? You clearly told me to rest well during pregnancy and that you would take good care of me and the baby." She cried heartbreakingly, like a wife abandoned by her husband. "David, you love me, don't you? You liked leaning on my belly and talking to the baby. David was a heartless executioner. He took away my right to be a mother and then tricked Ashley into being a vessel for childbirth for him. He didn't care about anyone else, only his own happiness. My heart grew colder by another inch. Why did I feel sorry for a person like him? He deserved to be unloved. He reached behind him, and a bodyguard handed him a knife. He looked it over like he was picking out pig trotters. Sarah, which hand do you think I should cut first? His eyes gleamed with excitement. I watched, terrified. Maybe this was the real David. He was just this cruel, only pretending to be harmless in front of me. Trembling, I walked over and slapped Ashley's face with all my might. I'll get my revenge myself. The harder I slapped, the happier David became, even telling the bodyguards nearby to applaud. He was completely insane. This was the only way I could stop him from killing someone. Although Ashley wasn't a good person, she didn't deserve to die. My hand was numb from slapping. Ashley had already fainted. I stumbled to my feet, but before I had taken a few steps, David pulled me into his arms. You're too disobedient. I have to watch you 24 hours a day after what happened. I knew resisting would only make my situation worse. I rested my head on his shoulder, forcing out 2 drops of tears. David, I hurt so much. He liked me to depend on him, so I would act it out for him. David was easy to appease. Hitting his weak spot dissipated most of his anger. I stole a glance at his expression and saw the satisfied curve of his lips. He happily bounced me up a little in his arms. I was startled and clung to his neck. My lips brushed his neck, a light, fleeting touch, but he shivered. I felt the hand on my waist tighten and begin to move upwards. I rubbed my face into his neck, blood stained his collar, and he stopped. At least he still had some humanity left. David found the best scar specialist for me to repair the wounds on my face, but I didn't want to get better. I would rather live with this face full of scars. It would be even better if he found me repulsive. He had people apply medicine for me, but I secretly wiped it off when they weren't paying attention. Half a month passed with no improvement, and he grew anxious. What are you good for? You can't even heal these scars. What am I paying you all that money for? I rolled over. Pretending to be woken up by the noise, he sent the people out. His voice grew quieter and quieter. I took the chance to search the room frantically for sleeping pills. I had seen about half a bottle left last time, enough to require emergency care. My sleep had been poor recently, and he occasionally gave me a few, but he hadn't told me where he kept them. I turned the room upside down just as I was about to give up. I found them in the closet. I poured them all out and swallowed more than 10 pills in a gulp. Before losing consciousness, I knocked over the vase on the table. The crisp sound of breaking coincided with David kicking down the door. My back felt numb. I guessed I was lying on glass shards. David ran towards me, sliding on his knees to reach me, but my outstretched hand fell before he could grasp it. Before losing consciousness, I heard his tragic cry, "Sarah, don't scare me." I did it on purpose. I had no chance of escaping. Ashley hadn't told him her address, yet he found that unknown basement in half a day. Even if I ran to the ends of the earth, he would find a way to get me back. I had to gamble, to bet on his soft spot for me. If I lost the bet, I could just die. If I won, I would have my new life. I seemed to have a long dream. In the dream were Michael and David. They were both in the same car accident. Michael reached out his hand to me, and that hand was covered in blood. He told me, "Sarah, don't be sad. I will stay with you in another form." I wanted to run over and hold his hand, but my hand passed right through his body. David was unconscious. He looked very gentle when he was asleep, not irritable at all. The scene shifted to a hospital. 2 surgeries were happening simultaneously, but only David came out. He was still unconscious, but I felt he looked hideous. He was the one who took away Michael's right to live. I beat his body with all my might, collapsing into heartbroken sobs. But the sleeping David suddenly opened his eyes and grabbed my neck. "Sarah, you can't get rid of me." His eyes were like Satan's from hell. I woke up, terrified. The first thing I saw was pure white. Before I could react, I was hugged tightly. "Sarah, you're finally awake." You don't know how scared I was. David bumped me so hard my chest hurt. My lungs hurt from coughing, but my voice was as small as a mosquito. I hadn't spoken for so long. My throat wasn't used to it, but tears kept flowing from my eyes. The dream was real. Though I hadn't dreamt of that scene for years, I hated David. I wished he had died in that car accident, but I missed Michael so much. I wanted to be with him every moment, so I deceived myself and dated, then married David. Every time I leaned against his chest, It felt like Michael was talking to me. Listening to the strong heartbeat made me feel like Michael had never left. David wiped away my tears again and again, but they flowed like an endless spring. I hugged David and bit down fiercely on the vein in his neck. I used all my strength. But having been unconscious for so long, I only had enough strength to leave a tooth mark. Not even blood came out. He dotingly stroked my head, speaking coaxingly, "If you hate me, you can make a cut on me every day. Let out a little bit each time." He leaned down and whispered in my ear, "I like seeing your lips stained with my blood. That vibrant red is especially mesmerizing." He lifted his hand, and I saw a wound on his wrist, still oozing blood. Thinking he might have drawn blood from me while I was unconscious, I couldn't help but gag, vomiting into the trash can repeatedly. I had just come back from the brink of death and refused to eat, so I had lost a lot of weight. David held me every day like he was holding a bag of bones, but he seemed happy. "Sarah, why can't we go back to how things were? I liked it when you depended on me, when you clung to me." In the beginning, I did obsessively lean against his chest, but I also knew clearly that Michael was long gone, and this heart didn't represent anything. Two voices fought in my head. I started becoming erratic. It wasn't until Ashley stood in front of me that I realized David and Michael were completely different. Even with the same heart, they were two strangers. David was cold-blooded and selfish. I should leave him as soon as possible. I wiped my mouth and scoffed. "I was never dependent on you. Didn't you know that?" David was stubborn, and I was even more so. Neither of us would give in. I hadn't eaten for more than 10 days, only sustained by 4 drip. That day, he sighed and pulled me into his arms, holding me for a long time. Finally, he took out the divorce agreement. "If you eat properly, I'll sign." He had someone bring in dinner. I grabbed the plate with one hand and devoured the food, chewing a few times and swallowing. I was afraid he would change his mind, so I stuffed food into my mouth desperately, filling my stomach until it bulged. He tried to take my plate away, but I held onto it tightly, clutching it like a treasure. Watching him warily, David cried. He wrote his name with a trembling hand. "Sarah, you are free." I couldn't help but curve my lips, feeling my whole body lighten. David still wasn't as ruthless as I was. I looked at the signature on the paper. It seemed to radiate golden light, more precious than anything else. I wrote my name next to David's. Looking at it over and over again, he carefully reached out, holding me loosely in his arms. "Sarah, can I hold you?" David had become foolish. I grabbed his clothes, getting grease all over him, and he just smiled happily. Early the next morning, I dragged David to City Hall. "Strike while the iron is hot." He was full of tricks and could change his mind at any moment. Only when the divorce decree was in my hand did the heavy stone in my heart finally drop. As we walked out of City Hall, he walked beside me, shielding me from the harsh sun. I pushed him away. "David, this light was always mine. You took it away before. Now you should give it back to me." I walked towards my own life, stepping into the morning light. David followed behind me, but he didn't dare to come any closer. He stayed in the shadows, chasing the figure ahead step by step. As I crossed the traffic light, he suddenly called out to me, "Sarah, I wish you happiness." I quickly walked to the other side, but I heard the screech of brakes behind me. I didn't dare to turn back, only my eyes were filled with tears. "David, goodbye."